Good morning. Hi, this is Dr. Judy Saalinger here with Lasting Recovery, where we have hope and help for helping you to find freedom from alcohol and drugs. I'm glad you've joined us today to hear more about substance abuse problems and what you can do to help yourself and others. Today's topic, we're going to cover a little bit about marijuana use, abuse, and dependence. And so whether you're listening in your car, in your home, or your office, so we've got some helpful ideas for you today to think about. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist and clinical director of Lasting Recovery, a nationally accredited individualized treatment program for substance use disorders, the anxiety, depression, and other co-occurring issues that often are associated with substance use. And we offer hope and help, and we believe, as others do, that you can find freedom from alcohol and drugs. You can call Lasting Recovery at 858-453-4315, or you can go to www.lastingrecovery.com. You know, when we look at our intentions of what it is that we really want, sometimes we're blocked by our substance use, we're blocked by our fears and our concerns, about getting into the solution, or we don't feel like we have hope. And what I want you to know is that if you're thinking about a substance abuse problem that you have or a family member has, getting into the solution is a lot less painful than you think it is. I find that when people come in for some help, that the relief is gone. The relief is there. That the fear is gone. The relief is there, that you recognize that first of all, you're not alone. And a lot of the anxiety that gets built up is some of the conflict about, do I have a problem? Do I not have a problem? Am I lying again? Am I covering up something? Am I loaded? Can they see me? Do they know? And so as part of what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about marijuana use, marijuana abuse, and marijuana dependence. In San Diego, teens from, all areas of the country and the county here are really affected by marijuana dependence. So we see that it's really becomes an international problem. But in San Diego, it's a problem in San Diego County by the fact that 78% of admissions for teens under age 18 was for marijuana dependence. That's admission into alcohol and drug treatment programs. And marijuana is not a harmless drug, and when it's used by teens and their brains are forming, it's really setting a baseline for a lifetime of attraction to mind and mood-altering substances as a way to deal with boredom, loneliness, stress, frustration, and other just sort of normal life experiences. And one of the things that we have at Lasting Recovery, we have an early intervention program and an intensive outpatient program for teens and their families to help them look at the issue about marijuana. Is it causing problem in their families? Is it causing problems at school? Are their grades down? Are they using other drugs with it? And, in our early intervention program, we really look at the family's response to the kids using substances and try to help people to understand what's going on and so that they can make better choices. So in our program, in our adult program, what we have found is that marijuana use was the gateway drug, along with cigarettes, and sometimes used interchangeably along with alcohol during the teen years. And someone might come into treatment and they're 35, 40, 50 years old, and they've been using substances all these years. But when we really get back down to what was the first substance that you used, marijuana was often the gateway drug. And, with its prevalence beginning in the late 60s, early 70s, you see that generation may have been introduced to nicotine and marijuana around the same time, had a few drinks. But we find those three are what we call, those early users using that combination. And what happens is that, these folks didn't realize that they were changing their brain chemistry to an uncontrollable dependency on chemicals to mask their feelings and to block their problem-solving abilities. And it just really has affected all areas of their life because it's your decisions that you make, So what we look at right now is that 47% of teens, that's nearly one half, 5 out of 10 teens, are using marijuana, and they've used it in the past 30 days. Now, when we look at that, what we're seeing is that the stakes are really high here, and because, first of all, local drug dealers not only sell marijuana, but they offer a line of drugs. And, they're powerful, addicting prescription drugs and heroin. So drug dealers, like, I always call it like the Amway product network, you need to have at least 10 customers to supply their own habits. So what happens is that they begin by, selling the marijuana, and then, it's like then they invite them to use other drugs, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But what we really want to look at is the fact that marijuana is not a harmless drug. When a person and the young person starts to use it, what happens is that it becomes a secret, first of all. And when you have a secret from your family, then your personality begins changing. And parents know that there's something going on, but they can't really identify what it is. And then you start hanging out with only those people that are doing it because they share the secret. And so this kind of network goes on so that we have a secret. Other people aren't going to know about it. And, part of that is part of adolescence, of, keeping confidences, and everybody has different struggles. They're being sexual when they're not supposed to be, and, they're going out with somebody and their parents don't know it, and they've lied and cheated on a test. There's all sorts of ways that we begin sort of compromising those values of honesty and truthfulness with ourselves. And that's part of what goes on when we look at addiction, is that it's a compromise of your value system. And so it starts off with some of this lying, sneaking behavior, which actually becomes part and parcel of addiction as it's going to move into that place of addiction rather than using and just, or some abuse. So what we hear, from kids and many adolescents, and I know I said it myself because, I used marijuana for about 10 years, many years ago, over 30 years ago, and, it was debilitating. I can only tell you that it was debilitating, and, get in a little more, but the idea is that, it can create a really unpleasant experience, but if we're hanging out with all those people that are doing it, then you do it anyway, whether or not you really want to, because it's part of socializing. And, so pretty soon you're into the drug scene, and that's just what's going on in the community. And it's like, how do you get yourself out of that when you realize that it's kind of a dead-end place if you are continuing to use the substances and being around people who are using more or heavier drugs. So what people have often said is, it's just an herb, it's not as bad as drinking. And the truth of it is that there's impairment in driving abilities, health consequences, negative effects on the cognitive and the emotional development of the adolescent brain. And the cognitive means thinking. It's how do I think? How do I make decisions? How do I honor my integrity? How do I honor my value system and make choices that are going to influence me for the rest of my life? When we look at the emotional development of the teen brain, we're talking about how do you manage stress, anxiety, how do you manage conflict, how do you manage control when other people are trying to control you. And those are just some of the pieces of adolescent development that occurs normally. Our parents want us to do one thing and we don't want to do it, and so we get kind of oppositional, or we sneak and lie. And but we may not learn how to be assertive or how to deal with our intense emotions when other people are angry with us, or we have our feelings hurt, or we're disappointed or discouraged, or someone's, getting angry and shaming us for not getting an A on the test or something. Then what happens is, if we don't have the words to be able to express ourselves, we might instead stuff that feeling down, and the pain of that gets medicated with the marijuana. And so what we're trying to do here is to be able to see, well, if a person isn't using substances, how can they then begin using their voice? How can they begin expressing themselves and find other ways to deal with their emotions rather than to stuff them down and to mask them with a substance? So if someone you know is high on marijuana, maybe you might want to recognize it by they might seem dizzy and have trouble walking, maybe seem silly or giggly for no reason. They can have bloodshot eyes, have a hard time remembering things that happened. And when the early effects fade over a few hours, the user can become very sleepy. And so as a parent, those are some of the signs that you might see. And sometimes, it's easier to see it in another person than it is really to see it in ourselves. We don't often recognize what it is that we're doing, but we can sure take someone else's inventory to see what it is that they're doing that's wrong. And so San Diego County parents and school counselors, therapists, pediatricians, family physicians all need to be aware of the harmful effects of use. And marijuana lowers, the inhibitions, the impulse control, decision-making, and putting the drugs in control of some pretty important and life-changing decisions. And so when we look at, the effects, we can say, well, marijuana, is it addicting? And the answer is clearly yes. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more from Lasting Recovery, and we're talking about marijuana use, abuse, and dependence. I'll be right back.